flight is just part of this place, part of Purdue. It is so important to so many aspects of Purdue.
Adam and Rob, thank you so much for joining us on This Is Purdue, the official university podcast. We're really excited to get into everything going on with the new airport, the return of commercial air service. I know it's a project you both have been working on for a long time. So take us back to the beginning though. What made you all think that this initiative was so important for the university, and how was it decided that commercial flights were going to return to Purdue University?
Yeah, thanks for having us. We are so excited. It's an honor to be part of this. I'll start this conversation, and the discussion about air service actually starts with a discussion about beer, believe it or not. In the fall of 2018, we had just launched Boiler Gold, the Purdue University beer, and I was meeting with President Daniels' Chief of Staff, Gina Del Santo at the time, who has been just a great mentor and an encourager to me. And we were excited about having the new beer and what that meant for the university and for the community. And she looked at me and she said, you know, if we could bring commercial service back to Purdue University, that would be a mic drop moment. And so I said, challenge accepted, we'll go figure it out. And so we started from there, and Adam and I started to put our heads together and began to formulate a plan on how we could do that, and off we went.
And why is now the time? Why after 20 years?
Well, I think there's a number of things. One, you know, as you look at where Purdue has been in the last 10 to 12 years, the growth that we've seen, both from a student body perspective, from a research perspective, economic development throughout this community. There's enough growth in a variety of areas at this university, in this community, that it is certainly viable and time to take a hard look at it and see if we can make it work. And so that's kind of what Adam and I put our minds to and said, we'll start the process. And there's so much growth in so many ways in Greater Lafayette and at Purdue that this is something that we can sustain, that the demand is there, and it really continues to push this university forward in terms of just renown and ability to be a game changer on the world stage.
And you touched on the community, you know, how this benefits the community and the local residents. Mm-hmm. What are some of the specific advantages and conveniences? I know I'm curious myself, so let's talk about all the different advantages that the local community will have with this new return of the commercial flight.
Yeah, one, just ease and convenience, right? I mean, that is probably the key thing. And no longer, you know, if you think about travel, anyone who travels here by plane, the last hour to 3 hours are in a car. That comes to an end now with air service back here at Lafayette. You'll be able to, whether you're traveling from Seoul, Tokyo, or even Stockholm, you're not going to have to drive that last 1 to 3 hours anymore. You'll be able to get off the plane, get a rental car, or have someone pick you up, and within 10 to 15 minutes be anywhere you need to be in this community. And that's huge. It's not just huge for university or corporate travel, but also just for the community members here who want to travel somewhere in the country. They don't have to get in a car. They don't have to pack their family up anymore and travel to Chicago, O'Hare, or Midway, or to Indianapolis International Airport. They can start right here in our community, get on a plane, and be anywhere in the world in just several hours.
Yeah, and I would also add, when you come home too, that's not fun when you're, even Indianapolis is a great airport, right?
Right.
But you come in, maybe it's 10 o'clock, you
Yeah.
grab your luggage, you get to your car, you get on the interstate, you're home 11:30, midnight. Here, you know, you land at 10 o'clock, by 10:15, you're home. Sports Center's on, right? You're watching
maybe,
highlights.
yeah.
It's great. So there's all sorts of advantages, especially on the way home too. And the one thing I would add, recently I was at a meeting and President Chang was talking about recruiting, and he wasn't talking about sports. He was talking about top talent. You know, he was talking research faculty members here at Purdue University. But he was using the analogy of the transfer portal and saying, hey, we want the best to come here.
Sure.
And so many times we have people come look at Lafayette, Purdue, and they're like, this is great. It's just so hard to get to.
Right.
So and there's a lot of travel involved with research.
Right. So what can residents of the Purdue community expect? I'm curious, the terminal experience, the fees, what will going through security be like? Will it be different from, Indianapolis, O'Hare? Tell us a little bit about those key advantages.
Yeah, so it's going to be a lot better than both because it's going to be a much shorter line, right? So I'd say the experience is going to start when you pull up to the airport. I looked earlier today in the equivalent walking distance at O'Hare. $45 a day for parking to get from the parking lot into the terminal. Here, the distance is going to be a few hundred feet, and $5 a day for parking. So you're off to a good start, right? You come into the building, short lines, and then you get on a plane. An hour later, you're in Chicago. There's hundreds of destinations from Chicago O'Hare. So once you go through the security checkpoint here at Lafayette, you're in. So you land at O'Hare, go in at F4. If you're connecting on United or American, United to the left, American to the right. And they've also got partnerships with Alaska. Just walk to your next gate, your luggage transfers automatically. So it should be a fantastic experience, save a lot of time, and saves you from being on I-65, which was a good thing.
Tolls and everything.
Yeah,
too, right?
absolutely.
That's right.
And then what about, what about like a high level overview? How many flights will be going in and out? Will customers have the opportunity to fly in the morning, in the evening? What does that look like?
4 times a day departing from Lafayette into O'Hare, starting at 6:30 in the morning, coming back at 9 o'clock, and then 4 flights back from O'Hare as well. So, I mean, one of the important things about bringing service back to Lafayette and to Purdue is the flexibility. People need flexibility. You don't want to fly to O'Hare and then have to wait for 5 or 6 hours for a connection. And so with at least 4 flights a day, that eliminates the wait. At O'Hare, you'll be able to quickly get on another flight onto whatever your final destination happens to be. And so, to us, that was one of the key aspects of partnering with Southern Airways, was just the flexibility and the ability to have enough flights to get you anywhere you need to be without having to wait for too long in any one location.
I'm sure people will be very happy to hear about that.
Absolutely.
Give us just like a brief breakdown of some of the pricing and the fee structures.
Right, there's a very old but true joke in aviation that if there's 100 people on an airplane and you ask, what did you pay for a ticket, you're going to get 100 different answers. Right. There's so many variables on that. What I think is important is, the airline sets the price, not the airport, and it's subject to change. And it's a different price if you're going to Chicago and coming home versus are you making that connection over, you're going overseas, or you're going to another city. So I don't know.
No, I think in some of the community conversations that Adam and I have had, I think one of the things that we shouldn't have been surprised about, but we were pleasantly surprised about, was the positive reception to baggage fees. And you're like, what? Yeah, really. People were excited that the first 2 bags are free. Now, they've got to be 50 pounds or less, but that's becoming less and less common with any airline, let alone low-cost airline. So that's a real positive thing for us. And I think in terms of just pricing, it's going to fluctuate. It's going to be based on demand, but I would expect you'd see a price of anywhere between $150 to $180 each way, which isn't that much considering the cost to drive your car, to park at a major airport, and then your time and what your time costs. It actually evens out and is probably a little bit of a savings.
Yeah, so $5 parking and the first 2 bags are free under 50 pounds. I mean,
you're getting,
that's a perk.
Yeah,
absolutely. And then the last thing that Rob mentioned too is your time. Like what's in, what's that? How much is that worth to you on a particular trip, right?
Right.
So absolutely, at first blush, it's like, but when you actually look at the numbers, it could be a savings, not only comparable, but I tell you what, how long does it take to get to O'Hare? People ask me that. Sometimes it's 2.5 hours, sometimes it's 4, right?
Right.
So I don't know if you can put a it's hard to quantify what the price is. That I think that it's less about price, more about the value, right? It's a very valuable service.
So when you look at the broader campus environment, why are these new developments and the expansion of this airport so crucial?
Yeah, really, really great question. Adam touched on that earlier. First of all, in terms of just bringing top talent to the university, whether it's faculty, researchers, students, this needs to be a place that they can access pretty easily, get here pretty quickly, and the airport provides that. I think additionally, when you look at some of the economic development that's happened here in the last 5 to 10 years, and some of the announcements we're going to hear about in just a few days, this is a key aspect to those successes, in that it's not, it doesn't change a decision necessarily, but it sure helps someone get a positive perspective about what this community offers to corporations, to students, to faculty, really to the world. And so it is really critical, and it's a great first step for us as we continue moving forward.
And reintroducing commercial flight is part of President Chang's Purdue Fly strategic initiative. How do you think that this contributes to fostering community, not only with Purdue, but just the whole West Lafayette community?
Yeah, one of the things that Adam and I have worked on as we've pursued commercial flight was, there's an important aspect of travel for the university, for other corporate partners, but also for the greater community. If we can prove, which we think we can, that the supply and the demand is there for people to fly out, that then brings other airlines in to be interested in coming here. And so I think one of our mid to long-term goals is let's get this current service off and running, and then have some conversations with other types of carriers who maybe fly to vacation locations, whether it's Florida or to Vegas or to California. Those types of airlines, they love flying out of smaller airports like ours, and we've had previous conversations with them. And so we think this new service will help jumpstart continued conversations that really will be great things for our community.
And that's a perfect example of like a ripple effect that you're anticipating.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Are there any other effects that you see happening with this reintroduction?
You've got that for the community. I think it just, it changes, I think, the perspective that we have on the world stage, because just of the access that you now get to, not just across the country, but across the world, and how easy it is to get here, to get access to the great corporations that are in this community, the great university, obviously, that's in this community. This becomes an easier place to get to and more attractive for just a whole host of other issues, opportunities, really.
Absolutely. So with the forthcoming completion of the new terminal, let's talk about that a little bit. Mm-hmm. What are you most eager to see, come to fruition with that?
Yeah. So, I joke with people, a friend of mine that I went to college with, he came back to campus in December to visit. He hasn't been here in 20 years. And we worked together a long time ago. I was a student. I worked for United at the airport. Okay. And the terminal looked the same as it did 25 years ago, right? And now it's starting to change, and we're making these renovations at our current terminal so that we can support this initial service with Southern. But the next terminal, what we're really looking forward to is just having the ability to have more space. As Rob was talking about before, there are other airlines that have shown interest in larger aircraft. And I think it's interesting, Rob and I have been to quite a few conferences and met with a bunch of different airline folks, and spoiler alert, a lot of them went to Purdue, and so they'll say, Adam, Rob, this is great. You've got a market here. We look at your numbers. We see people are flying. We think this is going to work. What are you doing with the terminal? And that's always a question that's come up. And our current terminal is cool. It's got a lot of history, and it's been a lot of different things. But this new building is specifically designed and built to accommodate airline passengers, which is needed, especially for larger size aircraft. So that's what I'm most excited about, is that opportunity that we'll have in the future.
And how do you envision, that new building just enhancing like the user experience when people are coming to fly out of here? Yeah,
so it's not going to look like it's from the 70s. So it's going to look very, very good. I tried a marketing idea saying that you travel so fast to our airport, you go back in time. It didn't work. So this new one's going to be very, very Purdue, right? Like it's this gold and black, but this clean industrial functional look. And I think one thing that's interesting when we put this terminal together, form always follows function, and this is going to be safe, clean, efficient. We don't want you to have to spend a whole lot of time at the terminal. That's the key. We'd like you to come in, be comfortable for a few minutes, get on your plane and get on your way, or on the reverse, grab your luggage and get to where your destination is.
Our hope is that you spend as little time as possible in this airport, and so, as Adam said, we've designed it exactly for that. Get in, go through security, get on the airplane, and move on. It doesn't have to be big and beautiful to do that. It just has to be functional, and that's a very, I love it because that's Purdue. That's what Purdue is all about. So it's just it fits into everything about the ethos of this place. So.
That's a great point. And when you're, the Indy airport's beautiful, but do I need to be sitting in there for 4 hours? No, I don't.
You hope you don't. You sure hope you don't. Yeah, absolutely. And so we don't want that happening here either. So.
Okay, that's a great point. So Adam, you mentioned, you went to school here. You're a proud Purdue alum.
Yeah.
What has it been like coming back to your alma mater and leading this?
It's been great. I mean, I think the first thing I noticed when I came back in 2016, some of my professors were still here.
Yeah.
And what a fantastic opportunity for me to get to know them, as an adult as opposed to a student. And then I would, spend time on campus, and you walk across and you have, memories of fun, football games or events you went to on campus. And now it's just so amazing that campus it changes all the time, the main campus. And we just haven't really been able to keep pace out here at the airport, and now we're catching up. And I remember the first time that I heard about the Aerospace Innovation District. I think is what it was originally called. I was reading an article and was at another airport out of state. I thought, this is cool. I'd love to be a part of this. And there was this, but it was the whole vision. It wasn't just there's an airport.
Right.
It was everything that it surrounds it, right? And now when you look down here, we've got Saab and Rolls-Royce and the Hypersonic Lab, and the list keeps growing and growing and growing. That just doesn't exist other places. So to answer your question, it's fun to be back and just be part of this change where, the airport's been here since 1930. But I think that the next few years are going to be one of those times when we look back where there was a lot of change that happened in a short period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. So the significance of this historic movement, both for the airport and the broader community, what does that mean to you as a Boilermaker yourself?
Yeah. Well, that's a great question. So I remember the first time I came to campus, I think it was in 1994. I was a high school student. I came here and I saw a basketball game. I remember Glenn Robinson playing. And came out to the airport a couple times, when I was in high school. And you have a different optic when you look at it, right? I was looking at the classrooms, I was looking at the campus, I was looking at the facilities. Oh, this is great. I'd love to come here as a student. And then you graduate and you move on. And when I would look back at Purdue, I just thought, Purdue is great. It's home, right? I'm happy to be here. But you start to look at the rest of the community too, and you have different optics and metrics as you get older, and you think, there's a lot going on in this community outside of Purdue. We've got, Wabash National, we've got Subaru, GE Aviation, Caterpillar, all these great jobs. The economy here is very robust. So when I was at other airports, and I look back and you think, well, I don't know what I don't know. Like, I don't know what the market's like, and you can't change things from the outside, right? So I wanted to come and just be a part of it. And then when I got here and started working with Rob, and one of the first things we talked about was, a catchment study. Where's everybody going to? And it was impressive. The numbers of people traveling were much higher than I thought. So that was a good. I thought that was true, but it was nice to find out that it was true.
So when we look, at what's happening at Purdue, how do you anticipate the reintroduction of commercial flights aligning with industry trends and best practices in airport management?
Yeah. So it's been, since I've graduated the first time, there's been a lot of things that have been going on. When I was a student here, there were lots of airlines, right? There was American, United, Delta, but there's also airlines like Northwest and Continental and a lot of these other airlines, U.S. Airways, that don't exist anymore. So there's a lot of consolidation that happened, which made it much more competitive. The world changed on September 11th. That introduced TSA. It changed travel patterns for a while, right? And things always are evolving. And one thing that's really different as opposed to 20 some odd years ago is the competitive nature, right? We have to, for us to gain this service, any service, somebody else is going to have to lose. Not completely, but there's a limited number of airplanes, there's a limited number of pilots, mechanics, aviation professionals that go to school here at Purdue. Yeah. So it's very, very competitive. So I would say that the big difference here is we're one of the few places that we're seeing any addition, any growth. Most airports you look at, it's holding on to what you have. So to actually add a flight when you haven't had service, it's really unheard of. And we were talking with the TSA a couple weeks ago. I think this is the first time in, I believe it was 10 years or more, that they've actually put a dot on the map, which is fantastic.
Wow.
So
that's exciting.
Yeah.
You've touched on this a little bit, but what does it mean to you to see, Purdue's community plus the Greater Lafayette community come together all for this airport?
I was thinking about this earlier too, it goes beyond that too. I think it's even all the way down to Indianapolis. And what I mean by that is, remember I was back at Purdue for maybe a month or two, and the first time I got to go visit our friends at Indiana Department of Transportation, and my wife is from Indianapolis. I've been there many times, but I never had been to one of the government centers and the state buildings downtown. And I remember on the side of it, it said Indiana, a state that works. And I like things like, I thought, what a cool double entendre, right? It's got two different meanings here. And then the more I started to interact with INDOT, and then the local community, the mayors of Lafayette and West Lafayette and the greater Tippecanoe County. And then when we started to look at the support for this new terminal and looking at getting money for it, we went to the surrounding counties. And what I'm getting at is other states that I've worked at, I don't want to say anything, I'll highlight what's better here, not what's lacking in other places. It's the fact that people understand and believe and actually work. That I'm a perfect example. I live in Tippecanoe County. I work in West Lafayette, but I also spend money in Lafayette. What's good for one community is good for the region, right? So, and that's not true in other cities. So when we have these announcements of what's going on at the airport, they're always supported, and it's legitimate, true, heartfelt support from the community, and I love that. That's one of the things that's great about Lafayette.
Yeah, it's a special community here for
sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So Rob, you've played a significant role in managing all different types of aspects of Purdue's operations.
Yeah.
So give us some insights into how the Purdue Flies initiative aligns with those broader goals and visions from an operations standpoint.
Yeah, that's a great question. Our group in auxiliary services had the fortune to do a lot of really cool things over the last 5-10 years here at Purdue, and whether it's upgrading the Union or bringing an upgraded hotel back here, and just the opportunity to partner with private companies, but also there's a really strong student aspect to these things. At the hotel, our students from hospitality and tourism management get to work, get on-the-job training on a daily basis, and get credit for that. Some of the things we've done with dining, bringing in companies like Aramark and Saxby's, who give us these student-run cafes that hire and are completely run by students, and every semester you have a CEO student who is in charge of profit and loss, hiring, staffing, all the operational aspects, and they get credit for that. I mean, that is unique, and that is really cool that we're able to bring these partnerships to really just bring a better experience for our students. And that's very true also with this partnership with Southern Airways here at the airport. They already are working with our School of Aviation Technology on ways to partner with our current students and future students, job opportunities, on-the-job training, research opportunities with the researchers in the school. I mean, it is really exciting. That is one of the great things I think about working here at Purdue too. It's just that partnership that you're able to get between the academy and also us folks in administration who are just trying to run things on a day-to-day basis. So it's just a phenomenal opportunity.
Absolutely. So with your experience in your role, how do you anticipate the reintroduction of commercial flights will impact, this whole landscape for the university?
Yeah, it's we're going to kind of learn as we go. We've got some plans in place, but we're certainly going to learn as we go. I don't think it'll change too much immediately because Southern is a small commuter, and so the planes won't be large airplanes. But as I think this grows for us and we get larger and larger entities interested in flying in and out of here, one of the legacy carriers, that really picks up the work that Adam and his team are going to have to do, making sure that all of our safety precautions are followed, that we're able to get these planes fueled up and back out on a quick basis. So it will change, and we'll probably have to grow our organization. And that also would include just some of the other economic development opportunities that are happening in this community close to the airport. Rolls-Royce, as Adam said, Saab, others. I mean, this will become a more and more busy place, and so we're going to have to step it up a little bit and to keep up with all the growth we're going to see out here.
Absolutely. So what's going on out there right now?
Well, my guess is you probably have some students that are getting ready to go out and do some practice and and train on one of their planes. I mean, that also is one of the great things about this airport. Adam and I have often commented that this is actually the largest classroom on campus.
Yeah.
I mean, it really, really is. It is the second busiest airport in the state of Indiana just because there are so many takeoffs and landings, operations that our students are doing every day. I mean, they are in class, in an airplane, taking off, landing, practicing maneuvers, things like that. I mean, this is a classroom. And so to be able to bring commercial air service back to the largest classroom on campus is just really, really cool.
That's a great point. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that you mentioned that. Mm-hmm. So what do you love about working with the airport that's different from other areas on campus? You mentioned all the projects that you've worked on.
Yeah. So I remember when I first came to Purdue and was said, "Hey, Rob, would you manage the airport?" I said, "Okay." I don't know anything at all about airports other than I've flown in and out of them. But the first thing that I noticed here is that the largest hangar on this airport is Hangar 4, and it was blue. Like, why do we have a blue hangar at Purdue University? So the first thing we did is we painted it gold and we put a big P on it because I wanted people to know when they land here, particularly our athletic opponents,
Sure.
You are at Purdue.
Love it.
So we did that, and then we didn't do too much after that for a little while until we started on the commercial service. But it is the most unique, really, workplace I think on campus. You've got activity nonstop with airplanes coming in and out, with research going on out here, and all kinds of research occurs at this airport with the School of Aviation Technology, with private partners. It is a unique place, and it's just enormous. I mean, it is gigantic. It's just a unique place. There's no other place like it on campus, and it is the largest classroom on this university campus.
What does it mean to both of you to see, students taking off maybe for the first time, maybe they're...
I'll let Adam take that one.
So they do a great job. Nobody goes until they're ready, right? We see some spirited landings from time to time, but that's okay, right? And the thing about this airport, and Rob talked about it a second ago, it's the second busiest in the state, but nationwide too, we're like 98th or 99th percentile in terms of takeoffs and landings. And there's no such thing as a training airport.
Right.
We have to follow all the same rules as everybody else. There's just a lot of training that occurs here. So what's interesting is, we have students from School of Aviation and Transportation Technology, and also from Purdue Aviation, learning all day long. And then all of a sudden you'll have business jets come in, and then we've got cargo airplanes out here today that are moving parts in and out for local manufacturers. Soon we're going to have passengers coming in and out, sports teams. So there's a lot of different activity that occurs here, and the students when they take off and land. I just remember, I've flown here before too when I was a student. So when I look out the window, I just remember 20 some odd years ago, there was somebody looking at me when I took off and landed here too. So it's a fun experience.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
especially when every once in a while, I'll run into, mom or dad downstairs, and they've got their nose pressed up against the glass, and so, I'll walk you outside in the ramp, okay. And that's really cool. I've had that experience probably like 3 or 4 times where I've just happened upon a, parent,
Yeah.
and, it goes from this nervousness to like, they're beaming, right?
They're
like,
proud.
oh, absolutely, as they should be. And that's cool. So overall, it's very exciting.
So we're doing this interview, before the first commercial flight officially takes off.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to fast forward to that day. How do you think you'll be feeling? What will that day mean to you?
I think for me, I think we've put so much time and effort into bringing service back. It would be an understatement to say that I'm a little nervous. You want everything to go perfectly. And I don't know if there's a more variable industry than aviation in terms of, there's so many things that have control that you don't have any control over, weather and things like that. So we have no doubt it's going to go well, but it's kind of like the first time for everything, you're nervous until you actually get going and start it. And so, but also excitement. It's a proud moment just to be part of a team that's been able to work as hard as we have to bring commercial service back to Purdue and to Greater Lafayette.
I remember in February of 2002 when I worked for United, I worked the last flight on United when I went to Chicago. And I think it's cool that I'm going to be back to be part of the first one to return and continue, right? Like we need that service, so that'll be fun. And if it's like the last time, maybe I'll park it and load the luggage. I don't know. It'll be fun. I'll come full circle, right?
Yeah, that's exciting.
Flight is just part of this place, part of Purdue. It is so important to so many aspects of Purdue. I mean, you start with Amelia Earhart and what she has meant to this university. You've got a great school of aviation, transportation technology. We have world-class research going on here in jet propulsion. Daggone it, we should have air service. And so finally, we can add that to the long list of just what this university means in terms of flight, really, over the last 100 years.
That's amazing. What do you think the community will be most excited about when you watch them and their reactions that day?
Well, Adam and I have met with many members of the community, and they are excited. I think they are excited to not have to sit in their car for 3 hours driving to O'Hare or driving to Midway to get on an airplane to go on vacation. And so I think just the flexibility that it provides for our community, the ease, the convenience, as Adam has said, there's nothing better than coming home from a long trip and not having to drive an hour plus to get home, or 3 hours to get home. And this will just make it so much easier, I think. And the demand is here, and so it's about time that we've got it going again.
And I think it also brings a sense of pride to the community, right? Having your name back on the map, that's huge.
That's so true.
So we're almost there, a month.
So we've touched on it a little bit, the history of aviation. What else makes Purdue unique in your eyes? Why are you proud to be Boilermakers?
A really quick story. When I first came back to Purdue and I was settling into the office a little bit and trying to figure out where things were at. And I still remember one time I opened this drawer and it was just filled with photographs, right? And it was neat. I started to look, it was almost like looking through the family photo album, through the years. And some of them were black and white and some of them were color. And then I remember going through this and all of a sudden I found a picture of one of the former people that have my position. I think there's only been 6, starting with Captain Eretz. And I believe it was Fliedermeyer, who was I think it was the 3rd director, and he's shaking hands in the hallway with Neil Armstrong. And I look at the date, and it was before Neil Armstrong went to the moon. It was in the 60s, but he hadn't gone to the moon yet. And and it wasn't that it was being disrespected, but it was with a stack of other cool pictures. There was one of Eisenhower. He came to the airport and signed it. I'm like, this stuff needs to go to the archives, and it did go there. We have so much history. So when I see this, so one thing that I've thought of is, now when I'm talking to a student in the hallway, he didn't know that he was talking to the first person that was going to go to the moon. Maybe I've already talked to the first student that's going to go back to the moon, or the first one that goes to Mars, or does something else, significant like that. So that's why I'm always nice to the students, so that they remember me when they come back. But it's just that we look to the past, and that's great. But I'm more excited about where we're going in the future, and this is a key component to that.
That's a great story. I'm glad you shared that with us.
Yeah, I would say, I've been at Purdue just over 10 years now, and when we first started talking about bringing commercial service back to Purdue and Lafayette, there were a lot of people that said, great idea, but really, really skeptical. But go ahead, try it, see what you can do. And as I thought about that, I'm like, that's what I love about Purdue. You've got a creative idea, go ahead, try it. Keep going at it. Or someone comes up with a creative idea, go ahead and see if you can execute on that. And you're allowed to do that here. I've been allowed to do that. Adam has been allowed to do that. We've been allowed to fail, and it took a while, right? I mean, it's taken us 4+ years to make this happen. But we learned from the things that maybe we didn't do right the first time, and we're allowed to come back and keep trying. And just as I was, thinking about that question, I'm like, that's also, I think, what Purdue is about as we push forward in so many different ways. It's okay to be creative. It's okay to give it a shot. It's okay to come back to the drawing board and try it again. It's just, whether you're here as a student or you're a researcher or even working here, you have a lot of flexibility and opportunity to do that. And that really is, it's a unique place. There's not a lot of places you can go and have those kinds of opportunities over and over again. It's really cool.
Absolutely.
I think during the 150 Years campaign, there was that one commercial that said, we've done the numbers and we're not afraid to take the leap, right?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what Rob was just, that's what popped in my mind. It's not that there's no risk. We've looked at it. Let's jump. We can do it.
And the persistence of trying and trying again.
And look, we are proud of everything we do here. And we want you to know what's going on here, but we're not over the top. We're not brash about it. We got it done. Let's move on to the next thing.
Right.
And I think this air service endeavor that Adam and I have taken on has been just a great example of that. We've been allowed to try and to pursue.
The stories are getting better,
really
and the planes are getting louder. But this is a great segue. What is your next giant leap? I have a feeling I know the answer.
Yeah, so I've got
So it's going to be quiet airplanes, silent airplanes.
So I've got a cheesy but true response to you, an answer for that. So I think when school gets out for my kids, which is the end of May, we're going to take a trip to Chicago, and we'll start by leaving this airport at the end of May, early June, fly to Chicago. We'll go to a Cubs game, we'll go to a couple museums, we'll visit some friends, we'll spend a couple nights in the city, and then we'll fly back and then have a 10-minute car ride home. So that's my next giant leap.
I love it. What about you?
Oh, well, I got to make sure that I'm working when Rob flies out. I got to make sure that flight gets in and out in time. Man, that's a great question. We're looking for that first service date, but like Rob was just talking about, like there's a whole list of other projects. Right. We've got a runway that we're repaving this summer. We're building a new terminal. We're renovating this terminal, getting this airline up and running here, dealing with TSA. So for me, it's going to be, this is great, but we celebrate it, and then the next day we got to go back and keep working on the next thing. So I'm sure that we'll use it too. My wife travels a lot for work, and I know that she's going to be happy about having that connection home as opposed to through another city.
Oh, I mean, just being, like you keep saying, a 10-minute drive instead of as you land, you're like, oh boy, we still have quite a track to go, right?
Right. Right.
So is there anything I missed? Is there anything else you want to share with our listeners?
I'm sure it's going to get quiet right now.
And now it does.
There you go.
There you go.
Perfect timing.
Buy tickets, fly out of LAF.
Exactly what he said. Yeah. Great place to, great community to live in. And this is just another reason why. Direct service to really one stop, we can get you anywhere in the world.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.